Hello there, this is Bob Orchard coming to you from downtown, Old Town Mariposa and the famous Mariposa Hotel. And our studio today we have Supervisor, the Honorable Supervisor Rosemarie Smallcombe from District 1. Rosemarie, welcome to the Old Town Show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Bob.
Well, I bet it's not all the time, but I'm glad you're here. And well, maybe you could talk a little bit about yourself. You know, I used to work for that Board of Supervisors that you're sitting on. And that was many years ago. But maybe give us a little bit of background about coming to Mariposa. And
I was born in a very small town in Colorado. My dad was a cattle rancher. My grandparents owned a small restaurant in town. And when my mom died, we left the small town and ended up in California. And I spent my professional life working in Silicon Valley. And when my husband and I started talking about retiring, I wanted to go back to a small town because that's where I'm comfortable. And so we retired to a second home that we had in the El Dorado County area. And we started driving up and down 49, and we came to Mariposa, and we met a lot of people here, spent a lot of time talking to people, looking around the area at properties and homes, and we decided this was the place we wanted to spend the rest of our lives. And so we bought some property in Mariposa, and we built a home in Mariposa, in Jersey-Dale actually, and after we built the home, we got our occupancy permit, and we decided that we ought to really become involved in the community that we decided to call home. So we became involved in a number of different organizations, and then there were openings on the Board of Supervisors, and I started calling around asking, well, who's going to run? Trying to encourage people that I knew who I thought were smart and cared about the community to run, and they kept coming back to me saying, no, we think you ought to run.
well, here you are.
So here I am.
Well, lucky us.
Well, thank you for that, Bob.
I've met with you and visited with you a little bit, and I think you're a very good addition to our board and to our community. And we have a tradition in Mariposa when somebody gets involved, whether they're volunteering or they're running for office or whatever, we typically throw them in the deep end of the pool. And recently, you've been participant in our tradition. We're working on a little project up in the Merced River Canyon, and your district happens to be kind of the heart of that project. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, the Ferguson project is focused on the material that was created in a slide that occurred in the River Canyon there in 2006. And Caltrans is moving forward to build a rock shed to remove all of the material that was accumulated in the slide, and to eventually, starting in 2016, according to their current schedule, to build a rock shed. It will be the longest rock shed in the state of California. So it's quite a project. And
we have a picture of it up here on the screen. That's an architectural rendering?
Yes, it is. It is. And if you look at it, you can see that it incorporates a number of elements that are consistent with the surrounding environment. So there's a lot of rock there. Caltrans, which is responsible for the project, is making every effort to ensure that the rock shed appears to blend in to the surrounding environment. So they'll use a lot of the colors of the rocks that are found in that area. And they're also trying to create sort of an impression of a mine tunnel. And so they've got wood beams going across the inside of the rock shed. to simulate what you might see in a mine tunnel.
You know, I've lived up here for a few years. Highway 140 has been closed many, many times over that almost 40 years that I've lived here. Rock slides, floods, we had the road flooded out a couple of times on us. This construction project is fixing a temporary blockage of Highway 140. And for a lot of folks out there, Highway 140 has been open over a temporary structure for how many years?
For 8 years now. The
8 years.
rock slide occurred in 2006, and they're starting work beginning to haul the material away. They're starting on April 1st of this year. And
We've been lobbying Caltrans for many, many years now to try to fix this problem, and it's kind of a complicated problem because the slide is going to continue. If they take material out, it keeps sliding. So they had to create a concept like this rock shed, or they had to come up with a bridge or some other detour, right? And they've been arguing about that for 8 years. And we finally came to a solution that everybody could agree on, right?
That's correct. Yes, there was quite a process. Initially, Caltrans had proposed, I think, 6 different alternatives, I think 4 of which were bridges, 1 was a tunnel, and 1 is this rock shed. And at the end of the day, given all of the constraints and concerns expressed by citizens, by other government agencies, Caltrans settled on the rock shed.
So at last, we're going to get rid of our temporary fix, which had to be fixed, by the way, if I remember. We've been living with for 8 years. We had to redesign the temporary fix because buses couldn't get across it. It's been a very frustrating thing for people. We're in business in downtown. I spoke to you about that once before, and a lot of our business people have they're applauding the fact that we're finally coming up with a solution to this problem, and we're going to open 140 to normal traffic, and we won't have the delays that we've had historically. But there also been some other concerns expressed about the construction and how that's going to interfere with our visitors. We have 1 million people a year driving through town here, and there's the underlying concern, I think, of many people that the solution might be as bad as the problem. But I went to a meeting yesterday with Caltrans and the board, and it sounds to me like it's not going to be as bad as some people are making it out to be.
No, I don't think it will be. I mean, I think there have been a lot of concerns expressed by a lot of people in the community, and I know you've heard many of them. And I've heard quite a few of them myself.
I bet you have.
But a couple of them, I think, we worked through with the Tourism Bureau and the Chamber of Commerce. A couple of them had to do with the potential delays at the construction site. Excuse me, because as you know, a lot of people go in and out of the park, not only visitors, but also our own Mariposa County residents who work in the park, or people who live in the El Portal or in the valley, and they have to come in to Mariposa to work. So the whole question of potential delays at the job site was a big concern. But we worked with Caltrans, we talked to them about it, and excuse me, they're very sensitive to that question. And I was talking actually with the construction resident engineer yesterday, whom you met, and he was pointing out that the lights now that dictate when you can go across the bridge are on a 15-minute cycle. And when they're actually working on removing material from the rock shed, they'll actually have cars and trucks moving through much faster than 15 minutes. I can't say how much faster because it'll depend on how many cars there are waiting to go across. But when they turn off the lights, they'll have pilot vehicles and they'll move those cars through as quickly as they can because they don't want their trucks idling at a traffic light any more than you or somebody who works at the Iwani want to be stuck at the light.
Well, it just seems logical. That's an unattended light that's on a time cycle. It's not driven by traffic at all.
Right.
So another big concern that people have is the truck traffic itself. I read a headline that this is going to go on till 2020, but that seems to be kind of a misstatement.
Well, Caltrans doesn't know that it's going on till 2020. Their current schedule.
Well, maybe they need to read the paper.
Maybe. The current schedule calls for removal of the rock shed material, and that, as I said, they'll start trucking that out, I think, about the 1st of April. Mm-hmm. And that is scheduled to go until late August, early September, depending on weather and, if we have a fire, God forbid, that might delay the process. But that'll go through till early September. They'll have some cleanup work that they need to do, and then it'll stop. The activity will stop until till spring of next year, I believe. And in the spring of next year, they will release the contract. They'll let the contract for the actual construction phase of the rock shed. That is scheduled then to start later in 2016, and according to the current Caltrans schedule, it'll go into 2019.
Okay. The big question that was raised by some people in the community is over the truck traffic. It's one thing to stop traffic down there, but it's another thing the trucks are going to interfere with normal flow of traffic. What I heard yesterday didn't quite support that, and maybe you could explain that a little bit clearer than I've heard it. I talk to a lot of people in our town and around the business community here, and they've heard some pretty sad stories about how the truck traffic is going to slow down and discourage or interfere with entrances and exits from the park. But that's not the story I heard yesterday.
No, and it's not the story I'm hearing. I think the first point to make is that trucks will not be coming through downtown Mariposa. Trucks will start at the job site there at Ferguson rock shed, and they'll go from on 140 into town to 49. To 49, and then into the landfill, and then they'll dump their load. They'll turn around. They'll go back that short distance on 49 onto 140, back to the job site and be picked up.
So we'll have approximately 40 trucks.
Caltrans is still working that out. What I can tell you, the latest information I have from Granite Construction, which is responsible for subcontracting out the hauling activity, is that there will be 20 trucks. And those 20 trucks will rotate. They'll be going back and forth. They'll be on a route. And, as a businessman, time is money. And so they'll keep those trucks moving as fast as they possibly can. The only place that we might see them slow traffic at all will be on that grade heading up out of the river corridor. But there are some folks who drive slow. There are some folks who have heavy vehicles like RVs and so on. I seriously doubt that the trucks are going to slow traffic any more than some of those other slow-moving vehicles. And I am certain that the trucking organizations will move as quickly as they can, and they will be as courteous as they possibly can in terms of moving over to allow other vehicles to pass. So I think in terms of the number of truck trips that are possible, I've heard estimates that range from, say, 60 trips a day to 100 trips a day. I think until Caltrans, Granite, and the hauling company have worked out the kinks, nobody really knows what's going to be possible. When I started talking to Caltrans in probably mid-January, one of the issues that had been raised by some of my constituents and some of the other folks in town had to do with the message that's being communicated through the signs that are on the road and more broadly to the traveling public. And we were reassured even as late as yesterday that Caltrans does not intend to put out any warnings whatsoever about slow traffic on 140. Their traffic on 140 is normal. And
it'll be as close to normal as...
Well, if you think about what I was saying earlier, based on the wait times that have been in effect for some time at the river there,
8 years.
For 8 years, it may actually be faster than it was. So things may actually be better once they start working on the job site. But in any case, Caltrans they don't look at it as traffic slowing down on 140. Far from it. They want to keep those trucks moving. And they've also been very responsive in terms of signs that will be placed. The signs that will be placed will reflect the fact that there is work going on. They're necessary just exactly to let people know that they need to be a little bit careful. We don't want any Caltrans folks to be injured by someone who isn't paying attention. But we do want the right message to be out there, and Caltrans is quite sensitive to that.
Good.
So the latest that I have, and you heard it yesterday as well, is that there are not even detour signs out there.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, I think, pretty smooth sailing, and I don't want to suggest that things are going to be perfect. The world is not a perfect place, but Caltrans is definitely focused on working with the merchants in town and with the people who live in our community who need to go back and forth through that area to make sure that their life is certainly no worse than it is right now and hopefully a bit better.
And in the long haul, it will be a lot better because we're going to fix our temporary fix, and we won't have those breaks now that take 15 minutes to a half an hour.
Right.
And that's the good news. And when we get finished with it, we're going to have a world-class piece of architecture. Caltrans has done some really interesting things. I don't know if you've been over the Bay Bridge recently, but the new Bay Bridge structure is world-class.
Right.
And that seems to be what we're approaching here with our new facility.
Yeah, no, that rock shed is really quite amazing. I was fortunate, even before I became supervisor, to attend some of the what they called aesthetic advisory committee meetings where we provided input. And if you look at the artist rendition here, you'll see that a lot of the elements that are included in that reflect who we are, our history, and including, if you look at some of the guardrails, there's a pattern in there that was used in baskets that were woven by the grandmother of the current chair of our Miwok Tribal Council. So their attention to detail has been really encouraging.
I met the architect yesterday. Very interesting gentleman.
Yes, indeed. No, there's some great people that worked on this project, and
we are in a world-renowned setting.
We are.
And it's only proper and fitting that we have a world-renowned structure. And what we have now with our temporary fix reminds me of something that I would have experienced in the military many, many years ago. But so this is a classy solution.
It's a beautiful solution.
It is beautiful, and it is most importantly, from my perspective. I'm a planner kind of guy, right? From my perspective, this is an environmentally sensitive thing. It doesn't go in and and do a lot of damage to the environment. It keeps the river flowing. The rock slide is a natural process, and it's going to allow that rock slide to continue. It's just not going to disrupt our lives anymore.
No, it absolutely won't. And like I said, I think Caltrans, the county, we have a very good working relationship, and we're all very much attuned to the need to communicate a positive message about the removal of the talus and the activities during the construction process. And as the construction RE said yesterday, we're going to have a lot of folks here in town. Some of them will be related to the project, some of them will be related to the usual visitors and new visitors. I think Mariposa is going to be hopping.
I do too. After listening to the presentation yesterday, I'm really encouraged about all this, and I think that the people out there, my neighbors and peers in the business community, should be encouraged about this too, because we're stepping forward for the first time in 8 years. We're moving forward and getting something done, and the message is positive, and the good news is that you're here to tell us about it.
My pleasure, Bob.
I really appreciate you taking the time, and for the folks out there, do you have anything you want to add? This is your 30 seconds of fame.
Well, I would, for those people who are interested in what's really happening with respect to the Ferguson project, I encourage you to visit the website that the Mariposa Tourism Bureau has set up, and there's another one that the Mariposa Chamber of Commerce has set up with specific information on this project. Also, as I'm sure you know, we have a town hall meeting planned next Tuesday at 5 o'clock in the Board of Supervisors chamber, and we have another town hall meeting in the El Portal School multi-purpose room that will start at 5:30, and there will be representatives from Caltrans at each of those meetings, as well as some of their partner organizations, and they'll be ready to answer whatever questions or concerns people in our community might have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
and
for
I know
inviting
you're really
me.
busy, and for the folks out there, Supervisor Rosemarie Smallcombe, District 4, our County Board of Supervisors.
District 1.
Pardon me?
District 1.
District 1.
Okay.
You know, I get so easily confused. At any rate, Walt is telling us it's time to wrap it up,
Okay.
and so we're going to sign off now. And I really appreciate you being here, Rosemarie, and thank you out there for joining us.